But on the other hand, we know that dietary energy supply, the food energy out there, it can be satisfied without diversity. We don't need biodiversity to provide food energy to the world. But we know that micronutrient supply cannot be satisfied without this diversity, this biodiversity and dietary diversity. And interestingly, this was a statement made by a Zambian delegate to the COP in 1998. Agricultural biodiversity is a matter of life and death for us. We cannot separate agrobiodiversity from food security. Now, the rationale for linking biodiversity and nutrition include the fact that wild species and interspecies biodiversity have key roles in global food security, that different varieties have statistically different nutrient contents. I'll show you some data. Also, acquiring nutrient data on existing biodiversity needs to be a prerequisite for decision-making in GMO work. For example, if the rice researchers of the world had looked at the nutrient content of the vast existing rice genome, they probably would not have taken a daffodil gene and put it in rice to create golden rice. And recently, the International Rice Commission has decided that they will look at the existing biodiversity of rice before engaging in any further work on transgenic modification of rice for improving nutrient content. Because there are biosynthetic pathways for beta-carotene in some varieties of rice, among the many, many thousands of varieties that exist. Nutrient content needs to be among the criteria in cultivar promotion, and we as scientists need to generate nutrient data on the nutrient content of foods at that level below species. We don't tend to do that. We need to compile these data systematically and centrally, and we need to disseminate, sorry, I can't see that far. And we need to disseminate these data widely. And when we do food consumption surveys, we need to include questions and prompts related to biodiversity, because acquiring nutrient data and intake data at the level of the variety or cultivar is essential in order to understand the impact of biodiversity on food security. So let me skip that. And so one of the ecosystems that we've characterized, looking at the Mediterranean diet as a model for characterizing traditional food systems, was a rice-based aquatic ecosystem in the Mekong Delta, where we looked at the ecosystem. We looked at the species within that ecosystem, and we compiled lists of these species, and we looked at the nutrient content of the different species and the different plant varieties of species within that ecosystem. We've also been investigating traditional food systems and indigenous peoples around the world. We published a book recently looking at 12 case studies, where, again, the Mediterranean diet, how it was characterized, was the model for us to investigate other traditional food systems. And when we're looking at the biodiversity at the level of the genetic resource, we know, for example, that in some parts of the world we have wheat. We have at least 4 species of wheat. This actually is from an Eastern European country. And within that particular country, happens to have been Armenia. There were 4 species. There were 106 different varieties of wheat. And we know from nutrient analysis that the protein content is very different among the different varieties. Amino acid content is different, B vitamins, vitamin E, and individual fatty acids. And we see this clearly in many things. Let me skip these up. This is a study from Pacific Island countries where they looked at sweet potato varieties, and the difference between the variety with the low beta-carotene content and the ones with the high beta-carotene content really truly represented the difference between vitamin A deficiency in a child and vitamin A adequacy, depending on which variety they ate. We see this for many, many foods. So we have developed through the Global Environment Facility some indicators on nutrition and biodiversity, which I don't have time to go through, except that I do want to say, as it relates to awareness building on the importance of biodiversity, we need evidence, nutrient composition evidence, for example, to build markets for these foods, and we need to look beyond the things that people already recognize as important indicators of biodiversity. Wine for Europe, for the Mediterranean, is one. Everybody gets it when you talk about wine. You know that a Sauvignon Blanc is different from a Tempranillo. You know it when you look at it, you know it when you smell it, you know it when you taste it. It's all vitis vinifera. It differentiates at the level of the variety. So we understand this about wine, we understand it about coffee, tea, chocolates. Olive oil is now being labeled at the level of the variety also. But many, many foods are that different at the level of the variety, we just don't appreciate them yet. So sustainable diets, Sandro has mentioned that, I won't say much more, but when we at FAO talk about sustainable diets, we hope that it includes the intersectoral relationships between agriculture, environment, and health. We also include trade in there. We look at ecosystems, the biodiversity and the traditions. We look at the food composition as it relates to nutrient requirements and the food supply. What we don't want to include when it comes to sustainable diets is food aid, supplements and fortification, monoculture agriculture, high agricultural chemical inputs into agriculture, intensive livestock industries, and we hope that in the end this will reduce the diet-related chronic diseases. So recommendations and conclusions, I'm just about done. Food composition data are important. You heard Sandro say food is not just a container of nutrients. He's right, it's not. But it is also a container of nutrients, and we need that compositional data. We need to sample foods for the biodiversity representatively. We need to publish these data for global use, but we need to disseminate these data widely for local use so that people will appreciate the differences at the level of the variety. We need to promote food biodiversity as traditional food. We need to promote the integration of biodiversity into all nutrition-related activities. We need to link very tightly with the environment sector. Agriculture, health, okay, we're together in many of these things, FAO, WHO, and your own organizations, but the environment sector has been a little bit to the side. We need to bring them in. And food composition, data, information on the important differences at the level of the variety will help decrease biodiversity loss and environmental degradation. So happy 2010 International Year of Biodiversity. Thank you.